Good evening. Today I'll be talking about Mythos and Logos in Jez Butterworth Jerusalem. The play is called a modern classic, but what makes it so powerful is the way it stages a struggle between two forces, Mythos and Logos. My aim is to show how Mythos and Logos shape meaning in the play. I'll do this by using direct quotes, philosophical ideas from Plato and Nietzsche, William Blake's hymn, Jerusalem, which is obviously well known. So this is the table of contents. Starting with the overview of the play. Jez Butterworth Jerusalem is set in Wiltshire, woodland clearing on St. George's Day, a day filled with English myth. The central figure, Johnny Rooster Byron, he is an eccentric trickster and outlaw who lives in a caravan. He gathers a group of disaffected youths drawn to his charisma: Ginger, Lee, Davy, P and Tanya. They see him as a kind of escape from the dullness of their ordinary life. Against him is the Kennet and Avon council officials, Parsons and Fawcett. They serve him eviction notices at the start of the play, and Troy Whitworth, a violent local figure who humiliates him at the climax. The play shifts from naturalism to ritualistic, naturalism which presents a detailed portrait of his rural life, and ritualistic which comes Ritualistic, which comes from tall tales, enchanted drums, and miraculous bluffs, which blur facts and folklore. The closing moments, with roosters summoning giants, turns the play into a ritualistic act of defiance. So looking at the origins of Mythos and Logos, throughout philosophy, Mythos and Logos are seen as two distinct but related ways of making sense of the world. Mythos, which is storytelling, ritual, imagination, identity, and folklore. Logos, which represents reason, bureaucracy, law, order, and rationality. These are not abstract terms. They influence how societies function, how people find meaning, and how theatre creates the conflict between the two. Looking at Plato and Nietzsche, they gives us two key perspectives. Plato argues that myths are persuasive but dangerous. They should serve reason and justice. He saw law as a kind of social agreement, a compromise to keep society stable. In Jerusalem, this is reflected in the council's eviction of notices, enforcing control, and their bureaucratic language. However, in Nietzsche, he insisted that reason alone cannot sustain culture. Culture needs wild energy, ritual, and passion to stay alive. He claimed that the existence of the world is justified only as an aesthetic phenomenon, which is a quote pulled directly on what he said. Rooster embodies this Dysonian energy, Dysonian which is related to the god, Dionysian, which is related to the god Dionysus. Through wild gatherings, storytelling, and ritual defiance. Mythos on stage. On stage, Mythos dominates through Rooster and his clearing. Rooster is a mythic figure, part Green Man, part Pan, part Robin Hood, which are all mythical figures which Rooster embodies. His tall tales turn personal biography into folklore. For example, a boy comes with three things: a cloak, and a dagger, and his own teeth. The community around him is drawn into the ritual. Tanya, P, Davy, and Lee. They return every year on St. George's Day, creating a ritual of renewal. Even Ginger, who constantly doubts Rooster's stories, can't resist his pull and his charisma. Phaedra, the runaway May Queen, sings Blake's Jerusalem, which is a symbol of renewal and innocence. The clearing itself becomes a sacred land. Lee remarks, if you were a druid, this wood is holy. This is holy land. Ley lines are ancient energy. If you were a druid, this is wood, this is holy land. Representing how the clearing itself becomes a sacred land, which links to mythos. The last thing, the drum, passed from Rooster's father, symbolizes ancestry and ritual. The climax comes from when he beats the drum and calls, "Come, you giants." Next, let's take a look at how Logos is presented on stage. Firstly, the eviction notices. It reduces human life into cold paperwork. Secondly, the cold bureaucratic language of law and bureaucracy. The council's officials speak in formal ways, taken straight from official documents. Force delivers. Under Section 62 of the Criminal Justice and Public Order Act, with the notice of the council includes a brochure on unauthorized encampment policy, which obviously shows cold bureaucratic language. Through the the last bit on how Logos is shown on stage is through personal responsibility. Dawn, Rooster's estranged partner, pleads, just make sure there's no drugs in there when the police gets here. Do that for your son. I don't want him growing up on the bus to and from prison. That's referring to Rooster's son, Marky. So to conclude on Logos. Logos can be alienating, but it also protects. It reminds us of duty and safety, especially towards family. Now let's look at the conflicts in the play. The key moments that bring Mythos and Logos into direct conflict is the eviction notice, Logos in its most bureaucratic form, the final assault by Troy, Logos at its most brutal form. On the other hand, Rooster beating the drum, summoning giants, he refuses to accept Logos as the only truth. This makes theatre makes the clash immediate, and audience feels horror and awe. So the two direct conflict in the play emphasizes both Logos and Mythos. Blake and the hymn, which is Jerusalem, everyone knows. The hymn Jerusalem runs throughout the play. Blake questions whether England can still be sacred against dark satanic mills. In the play, Phaedra's voice opens and closes the action. She sings Blake's songs of innocence, reflecting childlike vision and fragile purity. But her song is quickly silenced, echoing Blake's view that innocence is always vulnerable to corruption. Rooster is framed as a flawed prophet, a blatant figure who sustains imagination in a hostile world. Butterworth, like Blake, suggests that without imagination, England risks losing its spirit. That's why mythos is important. The context and authorial intent. Jerusalem was written in 2009, after the 2008 financial crash, in a climate of insecurity, rural decline, and disillusion. It draws on the real figure of Michele. He's a real person, a logo-eccentric who lived outside social norms in a caravan, which basically is Rooster, reflects a lot about Rooster. The play critiques bureaucracy's overreach, showing how law can wipe out spaces of imagination. Yet, it doesn't romanticize Rooster completely. He is magnetic, but reckless, charismatic, but irresponsible. The eviction becomes symbolic. It's not just the loss of a caravan, but the erasure of culture and environmental memory. As John Bellamy Forster warns, which is a critic I found outside, once this kind of loss happens, which is the erasure of culture and environment, it cannot be undone. That's why Jez Butterworth reminding us not to completely erase imagination, storytelling, and ritual. To conclude, Logos wins in practice, Roosters evicted, beaten, and silenced, which might come as a negative. However, mythos survives in imagination. Stories, rituals, and drumbeats live on, like we are telling today. Butterworth avoids taking sides. Logos offers order, but destroys heritage. Mythos preserves identity, but risks chaos. To end, England may remain a country of laws, but it may lose its spirit if mythos is fully ignored. Thank you. So I've got some discussion prompts. The first one is Rooster a prophet, hero, or a reckless showman? Yeah.
Is he like kind of a prophet hero? Because he's like, he normally protects a lot of people even though it's in a reckless way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, that's right. So like, he's not just a prophet, not just a hero, but he's a combination of them.
Yeah.
Does the play celebrate the critique of myth-making? Yeah.
I think it celebrates it because it ends the play with it.
Mm-hmm. That is correct, yeah. How might you direct the council officials? Robotic and cold, or quietly threatening? That's quite open to answer, but since you guys are drama A-level students, I was just wondering how you guys might direct them.
I would say maybe a little bit robotic on that side because they symbolize like the pressure of society, like, and obviously Rooster like pushes against society's norms.
Yeah, so the way that if they are directed as cold and robotic, it really contrasts with how Rooster acts, and he's quite like open and big, and it emphasizes how they represent Logos and Rooster represents mythos. Should the giants be suggested with sound and lighting or left unseen? So you know at the end of the play where the giants are gathered, do you think it should be suggested with sound and lighting or just completely left unseen? Yeah.
I feel like sound and lighting because it like leaves your own imagination to create it. Because if you see it, could be a bit underwhelming.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, that's a good point. Any questions?
I have a question. Thank you. I really enjoyed that.
Thank you, sir.
If you go back to the Blake slide, I wonder, is Blake, is the sort of Blake, is Butterworth consistent with his use of Blake? So, for example, what might the dark satanic males mean in Butterworth? That's just a question because I'm ignorant of this. And what if you tell me?
Yeah. So the dark satanic males is kind of like the industrial side of Blake's Jerusalem. So he's kind of saying how Logos represents the dark satanic males and how Mythos might destroy it. So the way that he questions if England can still be sacred against basically Logos. Yeah, so it kind of represents the industrial corruption in the modern world and how Mythos sustains it, but too much Logos might disrupt it.
Any other?